Welcome back, everybody, to the League of Inches podcast interview series special. I've got a fan interview today. Put the call out last week's for these kinds of interviews and a lot more of the interview style for our show moving forward. And I've got Jason, and look, he's an Italian, so I'm going to pronounce this correctly. Polese. I'll probably got it wrong, but and then the Aussies will call him Jason Polese. So go whatever you want. He'll definitely correct me for talking and the correct pronunciation. But Jason, it's good to have you on. You are a massive Para fan, so let's start this off now. And probably has a bit to do with the big rant that myself had last week about the club, and has sort of helped a lot of people come out. And I know you have some possible concerns of your own and some other stuff you would like to talk about. So happy to have you on the page. Just what we want the page to be about, fans to come on and be able to voice their opinions and just gather some momentum around the messages you want to send. So let us know about your history with the club in terms of from a fan point of view, how long you've been supporting the club, any story you've got to tell as well.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Appreciate bringing me on. And it definitely was because of your very famous rant, which definitely resonated with me, because a lot of those concerns I've been saying for a while and getting a lot of backlash because of it. But like you've always said, people like us are just the passionate ones. We're more critical, and I'm that passionate because my dad, my late father, around 1970, when he was about 15, 16, started following Parramatta. He grew up in Guildford. And so, he got his license that year. He went to every game. They came last that year. He used to tell me stories about watching them play in the rain, and they got a win against Newcastle, I think. And then ever since then, and that sort of passion has always been part of me. So I've followed Para since I can remember. My dad influenced me. He was also Para tragic. The fond memories when I was 12 about the 2001 grand final. 1998, disappointment in the prelims and all that sort of stuff, especially 09. 09 was devastating for me because I was actually an adult then, and I could actually really feel the pain of the season. But that's where I'm coming from, and just, absolute tragic because of my dad. I've copped it left, right, and centre from all the boys. 2012, 2013, I was called Wooden Spoon Boy for about 4 years. So I've been through the ups and downs of Para, and I've ridden, along with the roller coaster. And basically, I just want to see the club succeed. I want it to be a powerhouse. I want it to be better than Melbourne. I want it to be better than Penrith. And I'm myself, because I am very fortunate to be a practicing barrister, and I have my own mediation academic services and business consultancy services that I do through my separate company. That I've actually generated some income, and I put a lot of that income back into the club as what's referred to as a hospitality corporate partner, and I've done that for the past 5 years, and I've been a member for several years as well. So it's blood, sweat, and tears for the club pretty much, and putting in my hard-earned cash as well. And I'm not A-land. I don't have the billions to tell the club what's what, but I really think that at the very least, even just the normal fan should have a forum to get their point across. And I'm very glad, and I'm very appreciative to have this opportunity. And hopefully there are people that agree with us, because we don't hate the club at all. We love the club, and that's why we're concerned. And hopefully there's other passionate fans like us that want to get a point across about some of the concerns we have. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but the major thing is the drop off since the grand final, and I think that's very concerning. It's a reminder of what happened from between 2017 and 2018, and how horrible those years were managed. So there's that type of scarring for us type of fans when we know that 2018 was only 6 years ago. There's still that fear of the club completely dropping off again. So like I said, just want the club to be successful, and let's get stuck into it.
Let's get stuck into it. Before I do, Jason is also a League of Interest subby on Facebook, so I really do appreciate that one. Just supporting the page a little bit further. If you want, guys, you can do so as well. A bit about Jason before we get into it. So he did mention it. So practicing barrister, mediator, academic and principal consultant at Advisory Proprietary Limited. Practices in commercial, corporate, employment, insolvency, property law, provides mediation and tutoring services and business consultancy services. Can be contacted via xvisory.com.au, Xvisory on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So if you want to, or you want to reach out to Jason, there's links afterwards. If you heard this and you do have some concerns you want to, and you've forgotten anything, just reach out to my page as well. I'm happy to send you his details, etc. as well, and go from there. But let's get stuck into the Para Talk, what he's here to passionately talk about, and something I want to bring up with you first. And you have mentioned the fact that the sort of decline of the club since that grand final. I've always said a number of times it feels like the club's using that as something to celebrate instead of driving them to get even better and achieve that premiership. It starts from mine in the junior development and the pathways. Now, things aren't looking great at the moment as we sit. So Reggie's have had one win so far this year, sitting last. Jersey Flag are currently sitting 12th. Harold Matt's third, SG Ball fifth as well. So for a Parramatta team, I think that the last two you'd probably go, oh yeah, that's all right. But for Parramatta and the junior base that they've got and the foundations they've got, we should almost be winning that comp each and every year. I know Penrith are a standout with that as well, but there's no reason why we can't be a Penrith Panthers club either. So what are your thoughts around the junior development and the pathway side of things at the moment?
Well, the first thing I noticed was that group with Ethan. Is it Sanders? Yes, Ethan Sanders, and the controversy around him. Him with young is it young Penasini and the other players that were SG Ball last year, and some of them have gone into Reggie's. They won the comp, and they won the comp together. And it's just a little bit astonishing that from that and that core group, I think there was 6 or 7 of them that were coming through as the next best thing. And then that's just completely fizzled out. Now Sanders wants to go to Canberra, maybe wants to release. I think Penasini had an injury. But there's just nothing really coming through. I can understand when there's injuries and things like that, but why aren't we seeing these young kids being blooded properly? And the likes of Talagi as well. The poor kids now have been thrown into a 14 position. Like you see the other clubs and the way that they blood people. Canberra's doing it right now. Tigers are doing it right now. Penrith do it all the time. Melbourne do it all the time. They give them a chance. They give them 4 to 6 weeks usually to really get stuck in and see what they can do for the club, and when it's come off the bench at first and then move into a position. It just seems like we're not giving those young guys a chance, and they're getting pinched. They're getting pinched. Like Lachlan Galvin, we told him he was horrible, and he was a paratragic like us, and all he wanted to do was play for para, and now he's he got suspended, but now he's NRL level being talked about the next best thing. So I think there's an issue with retention, and there's an issue with recruitment in the sense that maybe we're not really seeing the potential of players and not acknowledging how well they could do or how well they could be. And then if they do get a chance, we're just destroying them. Like a player that I love from last year when he came in and did an absolute job for us because of the horrendous call to bring in old broken knee bag hooker. And Hands just absolutely killed it for us. We won those 5 games in a row, in my opinion, basically off the back of his energy and the way that he was handling the ruck. He's one of my favorite players, and I said to you, Joel, I'm considering throwing some hard-earned cash behind him through a player sponsorship, which is a direct sponsorship of the player, to make sure he doesn't leave. Because I've got this feeling that he's disgruntled, and I don't know what he's done, but he's pissed off BA in somehow, some way, and he's not being blooded properly. Like last year, BA put him in because there was no other option. And I just don't know what's going on, that he's just fallen out of favour. And that's something else we might talk about as well a bit later. But yeah, that's my biggest concern, is that we're just not focusing on the talent that we have.
There's no doubt there is a lot of talent at the club. At the moment, when you look at those results, you'd argue there's not as much talent as probably some people think. that's where things have been wrong now for a number of years. And it's probably when you mentioned like the 2018 season, it probably dates back to us almost as far as that to get these juniors into place and see them start to come through. And you can't keep them all. Like that's obviously something we are not blinded to the fact that you can't do that. And when you've got a Haas pairing of Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses, when they're both fit at arguably the top three pairings in the competition, it's hard to give those players those sorts of chances. But the good coaches and the good clubs will find ways around that and build a way for these sorts of players like your Blazers and your Ethans and stuff to be able to experience something and know just how important they are to the club and really build them up in a way. Like I've been very vocal about Blazers last few weeks and how I don't agree with it at all. He's been thrown from pillar to post. He's played 4 or 5 positions now in a matter of those weeks as well. He's now starting on the bench. Like it's not doing anything for mine for either his confidence, for his projection into. I know Brad Arthur came out in his press conference this week and was trying to sell us that it is, but I'm not buying it. He simply doesn't know how to use the kid. The way that they've obviously signed now Zach Lomax, which I'll go out and say I do like the signing, but now come up with a solution to these sorts of players. Because if I'm being honest, after that signing, straight away my thoughts turn to Blaze and where does he fit into this team at the moment? Because I don't see Gutho retiring anytime soon, and I don't want to push him out of that fullback position because he's so vital to the team.
Yeah.
I'd actually start developing Blaze as a winger, but there's no way in my mind he should be here on first grade at the moment playing in the interchange. He should be working as now playing his trade as a winger. That's where his future for mine is at this club. And I'd have a serious conversation with him about that and just say to him how important he will be moving forward to our club in that position.
Yeah,
There's a
100%.
number of things. The recruitment, as you said, ever since the grand final has been almost laughable, in my opinion, the recruitment and retention. The only good one we've had is Jermaine Hopgood.
Mm.
And we were lucky the fact that he was screaming out for a first grade opportunity. He was already that good. He literally just needed a club to go to. And it was luckily we were about 20 minutes away from where he lives and stuff. So it worked out perfect for him. So I don't know if we sold the dream as perfectly to recruit him. I think it was just sort of, it worked. It was a match made in heaven type thing.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I don't know what's happening because, as you said, there's got some juniors, but we're signing people like Joey Lussick. We're signing people like Morgan Harper. I don't know where the club is thinking at the moment.
Neither do I. And on Hoppy, I mean, match made in heaven like you couldn't believe. And some people say it, and I agree. Give him the Tamalolo deal. Give him the Tamalolo deal. Give him 10 years. He is a player that I see being like another Hindmarsh. That he will play with us for 10, 12 years. He'll be loyal as F. He will play his backside off, as he always does, as he's shown he has. I mean, in the Reggies for Penrith in the grand final, he was man of the match, like at lock. And the only reason why he's not getting through is because of Isaiah Yeo. You know, like we're very lucky to get him, and I think that's another player which I'm very scared of because at the moment he's happy just playing. But you know, he's on the sides for Queensland Origin. I think he was in the extended squad last year. He's a player that very, very quickly can be worth $1 million, especially with the way that things are going for forwards and the amount of money that's getting thrown at, like the likes of Payne Haas and things like that. You know, we could lose him easily to the Dolphins or something like that very quickly. You know, like I will always say, give him the Tamalolo deal. Who cares? Put him on 800 or something for 10 years, whatever it is, just do it. But yeah, you're right. I just don't know where the club is thinking. Tulagi needs to be on the field. We've seen how strong he can run. We can fix his defense. Now, if he's coming off the wing and dropping back and doing that sort of stuff and has maybe like a Lomax next to him next year, you know, making sure that he's in line and keeping him under control, perfect situation. Like I love Simo. I love his effort. Don't get me wrong. You know, and you know, Sivo, unfortunately, he just doesn't want to run hard anymore. He's scared about, I don't know whether or not, I was talking to one of my Fijian mates about whether or not he's actually building a village or something in Fiji and he needs the money and doesn't want to get injured. I don't know what's happening there, but you know, our wingers aren't superstars, and Tulagi seems like definitely a young kid who can bring that flair and that running hard out of the back end, and even you know, from 10 meters out to like he showed when he was playing center against Manly and ran over the top of Tommy. I mean, he's got that. He's got that. You know, a little bit of tweaking with his defense. So what? You know, you're right. I don't know what the club was thinking. Harper was an absolute. I don't know. I don't want to be rude, but he was a Manly reject. All of my mates that go for Manly were literally laughing at me, saying thank you so much for taking Harper away from us. You know, he was. You know, if you recall, and I hate to be like this, but if you recall, he was the guy who matched up and man marked Talakai in that game where he scored like 1,000 points in the first 20 minutes of the first half. So you know, I'm sure players can improve, but that's the kind of player that we want in our club. You know, like I know he's all effort and blah blah blah, but he's got nothing else but effort. If you watch Harper live, it's like he's running in slow mo. It's very strange, you know. But anyway, like I just can't I can't agree with you more. We should be blooding for the right positions, and sometimes I just think I don't know who it is. It could be O'Neill, it could be BA. They just don't know how to get the best of the young guns, and they'd rather get struggling older players. And for some reason, that works better for BA to mold the older players, like a Papali'i and things like that. Like he's very good at doing that sort of stuff. But with the juniors, I haven't really seen. I could be totally wrong, but I haven't really seen him mold juniors, and I think that's lacking. It's definitely lacking.
Yeah, I think it is definitely an area of concern. And you mentioned Brad Arthur, and there's a lot of stuff being said, floated around at the moment with his position moving forward because there's a coach by the name of Wayne Bennett lurking around. And last week before the win, there was a lot of talk saying he's literally waiting for a phone call. He really, really has the Parramatta job firmly in his sights. It really appeals to Wayne Bennett. Do you think Brad Arthur is the one moving forward to take us to premiership glory? He's been here now for 11 years. We've had one grand final and we weren't able to win that. We got absolutely embarrassed, in my honest opinion. It hurts to me to this day every time I think about it. I've never been able to go back and watch that game again.
Neither have I. I
Is
have not
he?
watched it.
I haven't watched Hola. I haven't watched nothing. So anytime someone
Nothing.
tries to bring that grand final up, I can't tell them anything because I just go into not a good. His club coaching record is won 136, lost 123, win percentage of 51%. Is he the man to moving forward to lead us to that glory, or is it time to move on? And if so, is it Wayne Bennett the best man for the job?
Mm. Well, I think I'll preface it with like what you do and what you said to me before is, BA, thank you so much. Like no joke, we are so appreciative of what you did. You got us through some really dark times. 2016 salary cap. You know, you did build a pack, all that sort of stuff. Thank you so much. You got us to a grand final. You know, we started playing consistent finals football, barring 2018. There's nothing we can say or do. You know, I'll give the bloke a scotch every year for the rest of his life, whatever he wants to say thank you. There's nothing like that. It's not like we don't appreciate what he's done for the club. It's just that, in my personal opinion, and I think a lot of others, I think that's his peak. That's the best he can do. Unfortunately, it's been shown. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll be the first one if he wins the comp this year. I will kiss the bloke. Like no joke. I will praise him for the rest of my life. But at the moment, and what's before us, and what's happened, it's unlikely that he will bring us a premiership. He gives that same vibe of a Brian Smith, who just will never get there, who just doesn't, for whatever reason it is, doesn't know how to win a grand final. And then there's always stories that I've been told from my dad back in the day, like Jack Gibson, and he'll be invited to a team randomly for a finals game, and they were like, "Oh, Jack, you know, take control of this game," and they'd win that game, and then Jack would leave and say, "By the way, you guys are going to lose next week," and they'd say, "What do you mean? Like we were on such a high because I won't be there." You know, and I feel like Bennett is that coach. He's a Jack Gibson. He knows how to win. He knows how to win in the crucial games. He's done it 8 times before, 8 premierships. He's got almost a 62% win rate over 900 games. This guy with our team, I mean, look, Gutho, Moses, Brown, Polo, RCG, Hopgood, you know, these players as a core, most most coaches would be able to take that team to a top 4, and I think a Wayne Bennett would be able to win us a premiership. I'm almost certain, and I've said it for so many years to my friends. I said if we had a top coach 2017, we could have won the comp. If we had a top coach 2021, we could have won the comp. Remember, 2021 was that bullshit loss to Panthers where the trainer stopped play when we had an overlap. And no joke, if we had Bennett 2022, I know we're not even having this conversation today. So I really think, as much as BA wants to be pig-headed about it, even if he comes in as a GM or something like that of football, just having that guy that knows how to win, like he could just, like a Jack Gibson, just step into the change rooms, things aren't going well or whatever's happening, and just make sure the team wins. That's what we need. And if Bennett wants that sort of opportunity, because that'll cap his career. To end our drought, that'll cap his career. And I'm sure he's dying for that. He's dying for that challenge. He might even go out on it. We give him 2 years, he wins us the comp, and then he retires. I'm sure he would love to go out that way. And if he wants that opportunity as a head coach, then we should give it to him. I mean, who would say no to having Bennett as their head coach, especially with our team? But some don't agree, and I'd love to hear the against arguments, because all I can see are positives for Bennett to come into the club.
I can tell you right now what I reckon would be the argument straight away is the club power brokers, and we're about to get into that, would feel Bennett is a huge threat to themselves and their own positions and their own agendas and how they control the club, because we know from experience Wayne Bennett will come in and he will control everything and he will want everything his way. And certain identities at the club, I know for a fact, will not like that. And that is exactly why they like Brad Arthur at the moment. It is smooth sailing. They get to continue to do the way they're doing it. A lot of people I've spoken to have called it a boys' club. As such, we will discuss that shortly as well. It's hard because, again, I listened to the press conference the other day, the coaching one before last week's game, and the question was put to Brad Arthur if he would accept someone like a Wayne Bennett to come in as a coaching director, and he simply said no. He's knows what he's doing. He's been around long enough, and if that's what it takes, he basically should just walk away in a way. And I don't direct quote me, but it was similar to those lines. And I sort of pricked my ears up to that one because I thought, if that's me, if I generally want the best for this club moving forward, and he has been a Parramatta man for a long, long time, I want to deliver that premiership. To me, it's clear as day. He needs better assistants. He needs better people in the footy department. That includes a coaching sort of director in a way, because whether people want to admit to it or not, whether the argument that continually comes up is people go, you're either a BA hater or you're a lover. And the simple message is this: there is no other coach that I can think of that would be at a club for 11 years now, not deliver them the major goal, which is the premiership, and still be around. That is a complete failure in my opinion. And the fact that he's still there and there's no serious question marks, look, it's the start of the season. There's been some average results. Yep, it's still early, but the thing is, it's the way they're playing at the moment. It's like even the Cowboys game, like people want to talk about it. It wasn't a good win. We got away with it because the Cowboys defense was horrible and they just basically switched off. They thought it was going to be easy after getting some no tries early on. They could have easily been out to like a 16, 18 point nil lead. And it wasn't the case. We seem to have the same playing structure for about 3 or 4 years straight now. It's so reliant on the forwards going forward, and it's not like an additional thing. Yep, there's the offload there, which everyone knows is coming. But apart from that, it's basically just run straight, run hard, and then we'll see what happens. Our backline has no spark whatsoever. I feel sorry for Panasini, who is an absolute gun, but he's being used as like some battering ram at the moment. Like I feel like we're going to lose him to some sort of injury very soon if we're not careful with that. And apart from that, the backline has no spark. And if we're missing Moses like we are now, our team has no idea what is going on. And that, for mine, goes back onto the coaching staff and Brad Arthur.
Yeah, well, that's you're right. That spark is exactly what we're missing. Because, and I think I commented on your podcast, live podcast last night. I went to the game with my cousin and his mate. His mate goes for the Bulldogs. And the first thing he said to me was, "Where's the energy?" Harold looks flat, And Dylan Brown put on a massive shot on Valentine Holmes, dislodged the ball. It was really typical Dill bags, covering for everyone, putting on a great hit. And I think Penasini gave him like a this type of high five, and that was it. Like there was no energy. There was no yeah, what a hit. There was just absolutely nothing, completely flat. And if it wasn't for those two disallowed tries, I think that game is completely different. It was, because immediately I felt it. I was like, shit, like we are so down. What is going on here? And even that couldn't rally the boys. And it wasn't until Gutho started really firing up that all of a sudden the energy started to come back. And a lot of people laughed at me, but I proposed once Moses went away. I proposed, and it might be stupid, but Gutho at 7 in attack and 1 in defense could have fixed a few things. It could be working now with Ozzy, but we need someone that can just yell, tell people what to do. And if you watch Ozzy's field goal, it's Moses calling from the sideline and then Gutho putting Ozzy into position. So if that doesn't happen, we don't get that field goal, because before we saw how many times we tried to drive for the field goal and Lussick ran the ball like twice instead of setting it up properly. And then it wasn't until literally you could hear Moses, because my seats are just above the dugout. You could hear Moses screaming, and then Gutho puts Ozzy into place, because Gutho, from memory, I'm pretty sure he pushes him aside and then points and says, "No, you're taking the field goal." So like it's great that it worked out, but if that's a better side, if that's a Melbourne, which I'm, as you've said before, I'm scared shitless to verse them in Magic Round because I'm scarred from 2019. But if we play that way, especially that starting energy, we're not going to win another game, And I think Dolphins tomorrow is a very, very danger game, because Wayne will get those guys up. We pumped them last year. He's going to get them up for this game. So if we don't start well, and I don't know what's going on, like you said, is it the energy that's coming from the club? Is everyone sort of down? I don't know what's going on, but a coach should be able to manage that and should be able to get the boys up and make sure that just because Moses is gone and just because we lose, 1 point to Tigers, we get thrashed by the Raiders, we should be able to still get up for a game, because it was a lucky win for me against the Cowboys, and we can't. I don't think we can fluke it again against the Dolphins, and we're definitely not going to fluke it against Manly, who are now in some really hot form. So yeah, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, there seems to be a lot of lack of energy, and the coach really and the people around him should be able to get the boys up.
We are so lucky that a team like South Sydney Rabbitohs exists right now. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I want to go away from the on-field stuff. I want to talk about some of the off-field stuff. I want to talk about the club power brokers, the people in charge. I want to know your opinions on where they're at. You obviously have said you put money into the club, so I'm very, very interested to hear your thoughts around this. But have they become complacent in a way? Because there's no doubt we're still a very successful club in terms of the membership numbers, the financial stability of the club, the profits and that are getting made. That's pretty much always going to happen because we've got one of the most loyal fan bases in the competition, if not the most loyal. You look at some of the years we had to go through as fans and they're still stuck around. There's not many fan bases that would have done that. We haven't won a competition in almost 40 years. That's embarrassing enough, but we've still got people turning up to games, membership numbers crazy, and the financial side of things, huge profits. So do you think because of that, they look at the numbers strictly at the moment and they're happy and they don't really care in a way about some of these performances, that they're very, very complacent?
Well, I'll definitely play on the club side at first, is because they do send out to members and to sponsors and things about how much they care about performances, the pathways. That's always a key thing with like newsletters and when CEO Jim sends out his little spiels and things, there is always that focus. But I'm not sure if that is just to appease us, because as you said, we're a very successful club in terms of membership. We've got over 35,000 members. our membership grows by about 3,000 to 5,000 every year. And the biggest thing about our club and why we are so strong is because majority share, I think 51, 52% of ownership of Parramatta Eels is the Parramatta Eels Club. And the Parramatta Eels Club has almost 60,000 members, and their membership and their profits and their money is never ending. They've got the pokies, they've got all the restaurants, they've got other ownerships in other clubs, like their own little pubs and things. So they're doing really well. So of course, from the back of that, our football club does really well, plenty of members, because most of the time Leeds club members become Eels members and all that sort of stuff. And we've got this brand new stadium and all that sort of stuff. We look so good. The centre of excellence, all that sort of stuff is great, and it looks really good. But then, is that all they care about? Maybe, because if we can keep telling the shareholders that money's being made, everyone's happy, we're gaining members, profits are soaring, everyone buys the merch, everyone's coming to games, all that sort of stuff, then why would they care about performances? So I think it's almost in a sense like a fallacy, where they say, well, all we want to do is win a premiership, but at the end of the day, numbers go up, which means tick tick, all good. So until something dramatic happens, like what it was back in the day in 2012, 2013, when you'd probably get like 5,000 or 6,000 to a game max, and it was empty at the old Parramatta Stadium. Until that happens again, I don't think they're going to care too much about performance, because they are riding off 2022. They're still riding off that. And at the moment, they've got the excuse of 2023 was injuries and suspensions and blah, blah, blah. But you've seen some of the real power brokers like A-Land. They've said, no, hang on a second, that's not good enough. And they've put the club on notice. And I have spoken to other corporates. A lot of people not renewing their corporate sponsorships, downgrading, like I downgraded. And not because I don't like the club or anything like that. It's just not seeing a benefit. The cost analysis benefit from a business point of view is not good enough anymore, because we're not getting that exposure that we were getting a couple of years ago. We're not getting those results. Okay, the Bulldogs was a packed house apparently. Manly was a packed house apparently. But if we keep going down this road where we're doing this up and down, and especially if we don't make the 8 this year, I can see a lot of big sponsors pulling out, and one of them will probably be A-Land. Maybe he's had enough. I don't know. Maybe he's not getting his way. But definitely, I think that it is almost an illusion about this. We care about performances, we care about pathways, and everyone's doing great. The other thing I wanted to mention as well is that a lot of money being subsidised by the club and the Leagues Club is going into the women's game. Now that's great. That's great. But a lot of focus is getting taken away from my view from pathways. So what will happen once the women's comp starts? Reggie's will start playing out at Kellyville, and I really hope that doesn't happen again. But that's what happened last year. So for some reason, at home games, if they clash with the women's comp, Reggie's gets the flick. And I don't understand that, because I want to go to Combank and I want to watch the grades. I want to see who's coming through, because I turn up when gates open. I want to see the grades. I'll watch the women, no problem. Like, I've got nothing against them, but I also want to watch Reggie's. Why do I have to go to Kellyville to go watch the Reggie's when they could be playing at Combank? And I open the gates. Yeah, exactly. Open the gates at 10 a.m. Who cares? Play all of them at Combank. Why can't we do that? And we used to do that, because even when we had Wenty in 2019, when it was still Wenty Leagues, they were playing all their home games at Bank West at the time. So I don't know. I understand why there's a push for the women's game, and it needs the funding, but don't sacrifice the Reggies for the women's game. It's that I get that other saying as well, which was going around when BA was trying to figure out how to put people in different positions. It's don't weaken one position to strengthen another. Try and make sure they're both still strong. And that's another concern for me as well, about the club talking about whether or not they care about performance. Well, why don't you put the players coming through in front of the fans? so we can see what's going on as well.
It's you mentioned a couple of things there, and there's a lot to process with it. There is a lot of basically questions we need answers to. Um, I don't know if it will happen. I don't know if someone at the club will listen to this video and will answer or will be happy to. I don't know if they'll take it the other way. They'll absolutely hate what they're listening to. But I would encourage. I'm more than happy to have conversations. I'm more than happy to hear from both sides of the party. As Jay said, we're both just sort of concerned fans, I guess, in a way. And I hate hearing things like last year they use the injuries and as an excuse. It wasn't the injuries; it was poor discipline. It was self-inflicted damage, and it was the fact the club was still celebrating the making a grand final as a success when it isn't. If you're not winning that trophy, you're not getting that ring. You haven't had a successful season, no matter what position you finish in. And the fact that we didn't have that mentality as a club, that goes back to someone like the coach that we've got in. Goes back to the GM. That goes back to the CEO. They're not having that mantra of going, no, that's not good enough. We need to go and win this thing. That's why we need to sort of, in my opinion, make some changes in those departments and have people in place like the Wayne Bennett figure who will go, like, let's say the Canberra Raiders game. He would have had the boys that fired up by simply saying that was embarrassing. You've embarrassed yourselves. You've embarrassed the club. You've embarrassed the fans. Get out there this weekend against the Cowboys and show me what you got. And I guarantee you, the start would have been completely different had we had someone like a Wayne Bennett as coach. They came out and they looked like they still didn't care. It was the fact that we had some disallowed tries that kept us in that game. I want to go back to something you mentioned, and I've mentioned a couple of times, and I've heard around the traps, the boys' club mentality, and we hear it a lot. We've read and listened to articles in the past over the last year or two involving this sort of mantra at the club, led by certain individuals. What do you think of when you think of this boys, the boys' club mentality, and where it sort of stems from, and what it leads to?
Well, I'm not sure, and most of what I know is through the media, because I don't, unfortunately, as much as I'm involved, I don't really have that inside information into the sheds and things like that. But from what I understand, um, it could be certain people at the club. It could be the way that they want to run the club. But 2021, we brought in Nathan Brown, the old Saints coach, Saints player, and he was put in and brought in to develop our pathways, like he did for New Zealand. Set those things up there. I believe he was coaching a side, and he was basically there to sort of bring things into line, set things up for the club. And it seems like what he actually knows how to do is bring those players through, and almost like a second pair of eyes. And because of that, he was actually instructed to do a report and a review on the club. He gave that review in around September 2022, around somewhere around then. And one of the biggest claims that came out from it was this notion of boys' club, favoritism, and nepotism. Now, I never really thought about it before then, to be honest with you. I never really thought about it. But then when it was said, you sort of start thinking back and going, hey, hang on, how come these players didn't get dropped when they were, horrible? How come we back these players when they're unfit? How do these certain players come through the ranks over others? Why do we let go of some players and not others? So it really made me think. And for me, a lot of the time, people can call this sort of stuff conspiracies and all that sort of stuff. That's fine, because we never really going to know the truth. But for me, it's always about consequences. And the consequences from that report for Nathan Brown was he left the club. Now, for me, that's telling. That's telling. That's a red flag. If a club was to they brought him in, and I think for a couple of years under contract as well. They brought him in to do a job. He did that job. And for me, it's like they weren't happy with what he said, or they took offense. And then they said to him, you don't belong here. Now, all the reports from Fox League and all that sort of stuff was that he left. He wanted to look after his family and focus on, the usual BS. But I mean, it's very, very easy to put two and two together that he's given a report that calls out a lot of people in the club and calls them out for favoritism and nepotism. And after that is being disclosed to the media, he's told to move on. And that's the extent of my knowledge on the situation. But that really did trigger some thought process around it. Going, what is really going on there? Are we losing great players and players of huge talent who are not being properly introduced to the club and properly molded because we are favouring family, friends? This politics of it's only about who you know, because that will destroy a club. A club can't manage that way. At the end of the day, we need the best players. We need the best people in the club. And just because your mate's mate or your brother's cousin or whatever it is does something that you like or you think you can trust them, doesn't mean that they're entitled to a position at the club. And that's not the way we should be doing things. Now, again, we don't know the truth. We haven't seen the report. We don't know what's actually going on. This is things that are leaked through the media. But again, for me, if that was the case, or even if it wasn't clear, even if it was maybe like a few comments here or there in the report saying this person was picked over this person because of their affiliation with one of the managers or something like, or one of the coaches or something like that. Even if it happened only once, a strong club would say, you know what, fair enough, let's look into it. What's going on there? Is there a problem? Brownie, take us through this investigation. But instead, he moves on. So I don't know. That for me was just a red flag, and I don't know if that's ever going to be resolved. If it's true, I don't know if it's ever going to be resolved, and I hope it's not true, because we did give it to Jake, and I think that's what spurred a lot of the momentum of that. We'll put it as a conspiracy as well, because a lot of people weren't happy with his performances. So maybe that spurred it on as well. But I just really hope it's not true. And if it is true, we need answers, because that's a club will definitely suffer. And you want the best. You don't want it to be a boys' club, because it's just not good for anyone.
Yeah, well, I agree 100% with that one. You got a departing message for us. Take it anywhere you want for the final part of the episode. Anything you want to finish up with?
Look, no, just thanks again. I've been wanting to sort of have my say for a while. I get into a bit of biffs with a lot of people online. It's nothing personal. I just love the club. And I'll put it out there to everyone that's listening. And if this does get any traction, if you feel the same way as me, if you want to know what's going on, if you've got some concerns, if you want more disclosure, more openness from the club, more access to what's going on, let Joel know, let me know, and let's put something together. Maybe a petition, maybe an open letter, something, anything that hopefully the important people at the club will actually consider. And I'm confident that we can do something that they can actually get their attention. Whether or not it does anything, it's a different argument. But something to raise awareness. And you might say it's way too early in the season, but it's not. It's way too late. To be honest with you, this is 11th season for BA. Still no premiership. For me, if we don't win the comp this year, then we need Bennett, and we need to really think about what we want out of this club and what this club is aiming to achieve. Because if they say to us that they're striving for a premiership and we still don't win it this year and they don't make any changes, I call BS. I call BS straight away. And we don't want mediocrity. We want success. Little brother down the road is making a mockery of us. And it's just, at the end of the day, I've had enough. I want to win a comp before I die. Hopefully that's, not soon. But, it's just one of those things where if things don't change, it could be another 30 years, 40 years, and that's just horrible to think about. So I think it's the time. I think there's a bit of push for it as well. It's happening in the media, a bit of pressure on BA. It's probably the right time for the fans to put pressure on as well.
Yep. No, I said it perfectly well there and summarized well. Look, I just want to quickly say to everyone out there as well, this is just passionate fans having a chat. Jason's got his views. More than welcome for the page to bring anyone on for any team as well. It doesn't have to be Parramatta based. The League of Inches is obviously covering the whole of the NRL. So if there's South fans out there, I do have an episode coming up with a South fan. But if there's other South fans, if there's fans of clubs are doing well, you want to come on and gloat, more than welcome to do that. If you want to come back at Jason and have your say on the opposite side of things, I'm more than happy for you to come on. Happy for club officials and that to come on. Anything. If you want to come and have your say, I'm happy to use this platform and the page that I have started up and League of Inches here as that sort of platform to do so. Don't be afraid, guys. If you do have an opinion, you want to be heard, message the page, reach out, let's have a chat, let's see where things can go. But Jason, I really, really appreciate you coming on, expressing your views, opening up. It's not easy. Trust me, it took me a long time. I still get nervous about certain things, and it's not easy to come on and have you say like you have. But I really, really do appreciate you jumping on and doing exactly that.
No, thanks, mate. And I will say I think it's a bit easier that I argue for a living. So.
Again, if you do need Jason at all, please get in contact with him or the page, myself, and I'll get forward you his details. But Jason, thanks so much for coming on. Hope you all enjoyed the episode. If you have, make sure you give it that like and subscribe as well. And I will see you again shortly.